Hey all, welcome to ShareTrek. This is Raj here. Crispr Therapeutics reported their Q3 earnings after hours yesterday, and the shares staged a comeback by jumping more than 3%. At one point, it was almost at 4%. So let's review the earnings. Let's get started. Welcome back, friends. First, let's look at the pipeline-related disclosure before looking at the financials. So let me quickly get into the pipeline page for Crispr Therapeutics, and we'll talk from there. Here we are in the Crispr Therapeutics pipeline page. Well, let's start off with Exacel. Crispr Therapeutics reported that Exacel will begin submission to the FDA for rolling review starting November, with the aim to complete the submissions package in Q1 2023, while the EMA and MHRA submissions are on track for Q4 2022. Let's unpack this statement. Rolling review, which means that a drug company can submit completed sections of its biologics license applications, or BLA as we call it, or new drug application NDA for review by FDA. Rather than waiting until every section of the NDA is complete before the entire applications can be reviewed, this is good as it saves time and allows for corrections as the submissions continue. The EMA stands for European Medicines Agency, which is a decentralized agency of the European Union responsible for the scientific evaluation, supervision, and safety monitoring of medicines in the EU, whereas MHRA stands for Medicines and Healthcare Products Regulatory Agency, that regulates medicine, medical devices, and blood components for transfusion in the UK, and it's an executive agency sponsored by the Department of Health and Social Care of the UK. Significantly, Exacel has an orphan drug designation in both US as well as EU. This will help fast-track BLA application. So overall, it seems like CRISPR has prioritized US and is parallelly working with EU and UK for approvals of Exacel. I think we will get a better idea of when to expect FDA approval for Exacel when they report their Q1 2023 earnings. And then moving on to the next therapy, which is CTX110. Here we have enrollment and dosing, which is ongoing for CTX110. And this targets CD19 B-cell malignancies. And we can expect additional data to be reported before the end of the year. And as you can see here, it's a wholly owned therapy. So that's another positive. And then if you look at CTX112, which also is a wholly owned therapy, what we have in the reports is that IND application for CTX112 has been cleared by FDA. So it has moved past IND, and it's a next generation chimeric antigen receptor T cell candidate targeting CD19 B cell malignancy. That information was not available to us before. I think the pipeline will get updated with more information out here. And then we move on to the next therapy, which is CTX130, which is again a wholly owned therapy out here, and we have already got all the information about what this therapy is about in the pipeline, so there is nothing new out there. It's targeting CD70 for the treatment of both solid tumors and hematologic malignancies. Notably, in September, CRISPR Therapeutics announced that FDA granted Regenerative Medicine Advanced Therapy, or RMAT, status for CTX130. The benefit of this designation is that it allows the company to get accelerated approval based on surrogate or intermediate endpoints instead of actual clinical benefit or direct endpoint. So that's another benefit for by virtue of getting the RMAT status. Then going on to the next therapy, which was reported upon, it was the VCTX120, which is partnered with ViaCyte. It targets diabetes, type 1 diabetes. And the news is that the CTA, or clinical trial application, has been cleared by Health Canada for VCTX211 for the treatment of type 1 diabetes. This is one therapy that I'm keenly interested in, and success with this therapy, in my opinion, will be a gold mine for this company. However, the spoils will have to be shared with ViaCyte, with whom the collaboration is taking place. But I think the first mover advantage is there with CRISPR Therapeutics in this area. And during the conference call, CEO Samarth Kulkarni said, "We continue to enroll and dose patients in our immuno-oncology trials, CTX110 and CTX130, and remain on track to bring our next generation CAR-T programs to the clinic early next year. Finally, we have progressed our regenerative medicine portfolio for the treatment of type 1 diabetes with the clearance of our CTA for VCTX211 by Health Canada. Now, moving on to finances, cash and cash equivalents and marketable securities were at 1.9 billion as of September 30, 2022, as compared to 2.3 billion as of December 31, 2021. The decrease in cash of 406 million was primarily driven by cash used in operating activities to support ongoing research and development of the company's clinical and preclinical programs. Total collaboration revenue was at 0.1 million for the third quarter of 2022, compared to 0.3 million for the third quarter of 2021. And R&D expenses were higher at 116.6 million for the third quarter of 2022, compared to the same quarter in 2021, which was at 83.5 million. The increase in expense was driven by development activities supporting the advancement of pipeline, and whereas general and administrative expenses were marginally higher at 27 million for the third quarter of 2022, as compared to general and administrative expenses of 23.7 million for the third quarter of 2021. And we should keep in mind that we have had record inflation. So I think the inflation is kind of pushing the costs up here a little bit. So I think it's more or less at par with what we had for the same quarter in 2021. Collaboration expenses net was 38.9 million for the third quarter of 2022, compared to 22.5 million for the third quarter of 2021. The increase in collaboration expense was primarily driven by increased pre-commercial and manufacturing scale-up costs associated with therapies in partnership with Vertex, which is basically the sickle cell and thalassemia therapies that we are talking about, the Exacel. And the next net loss was 174.5 million for third quarter of 2022, compared to the net loss of 127.2 million for the third quarter of 2021, higher by almost around 50 million. But then we have inflation to blame for, and we also have the extra costs on the pipeline and also the partnership with Vertex, where there's a commitment to do certain expenditures. So I think overall it looks good. In conclusion, I will say that first off, I think that the net loss was not too bad considering the cash balance, so no concerns there. And I was saying this is going to be a nothing burger. It was not a nothing burger, but we didn't have too many things except that we now have milestones for Q1 2023 for Exacel, after which we can see progress towards monetization. That's a good news. We also have news that VCTX211 has got approved for clinical trials in Canada, which means the therapy can be imported into Canada to start clinical trials. This is a major plus overall. And we got a little more color on the proceedings in the entire pipeline. So I'm thinking that overall Crispr Therapeutics has come a long way and the end is in sight for Exacel monetization, in my opinion. A little more patience is required, perhaps 2 quarters, and we'll potentially see the rewards. And I think that's all from me for now. I don't have much more to say about this. As always, please consider pressing the like button, and also please consider subscribing and pressing the notify button if you have not yet done already. With that, I would like to say bye. Bye for now. Have a nice day.